Let's see if I can move this. Oh, sorry. I went too far. And that is to start off by writing positive affirmations for a woman in the chat box. And so when you write your affirmation, if you could refrain from using the word beautiful, because women, typically that's the word that we use for women. And so this time it could be an affirmation that you write to yourself. It could be to someone that you're writing to in this space right now, or it could be one to all the women that are here. Um, so go ahead and start that.
WebEx Assistant is enabled to save audio.
Hello? Okay, I'm not sure where that was coming from. Did you guys hear that? Yeah, okay, sorry about that. Um, but anyway, 1893, Colorado gave women the right to vote, and I know Christine Berry and Jenna, from Colorado, yes, and so that was one of the first things that happened. And in rights movement, women also got some rights, but they did not become or come into effect until much later, until 1972 with Title IX. And that is where myself and some of the women that are showcased this year in the first PVCC 2020 Awesome Women Showcase really got an opportunity to play sports in high school, or we got an opportunity to um, find careers that were not available to us before. There are so many things that I can tell you in the past when they were trying to pass the Equal Rights Amendment. You know, the big thing was, oh, women are going to be working with your husbands. Is that really something you want to happen? Like we're going to steal their husbands? And um, there was just so much fear among giving women rights that it's amazing that we are where we're at today. And then being in career services, I'm really aware of some of the things that happen to women in terms of finding jobs. As a matter of fact, the use of the unisex name is something that happened because women were struggling to find jobs. So naming their daughters names like Ryan and Madison and Taylor, and that gave them at least a chance to get the foot in the door when they were doing some of the job seeking back in the 70s. And then some of the women here today will also attest to that when we went to school, that there was a lot of courses and things that we took that were all male dominated. In 1994, when I started my MBA program at ASU, and that was later, that was quite a bit later, 94, not 84, 1994, when I started my program, it was still male dominated. I think we had like 6 women in a class of 60 men. So it's amazing that, it was still happening. And then we're seeing it again now in STEM. And so there are so many inspiring women here today that can share a lot of the things that they have gone through. And so I'm going to start opening the floor right now so that any woman who um, can share a story or would like to share a story about what happened um, in the 70s or 80s when they were entering the workplace are free to do so. Anyone want to share a story? Okay, 90s, you're younger. Okay, how about a woman who is in a male-dominated field?
I have one of those. I, for, I learned to swear by working with men.
Jeanette, I think you muted yourself again.
I learned to swear by working with librarians. Seriously.
Librarians.
Yeah. Oh,
They were
yeah.
all they were
Yep.
men.
I'm the only girl, and I have 4 brothers. My closest friends generally have been men, but it wasn't until I worked with the librarians that I accepted swearing.
Wow.
But I have one. I worked in the world of manufacturing before I came to Maricopa. And in fact, it was big steel manufacturing. I was the operations manager. And in 2000, I got a new boss. And he was very Texan. He came from Texas because that's where the home office was. And he did not accept my role and my knowledge, and used 9/11 to get rid of me. He used the business downturn in 9/11 to finally lay me off.
Okay.
So
Anyone else?
male dominated.
Yeah. It's amazing. You're saying 2000, but yes, um, it's still there, right?
Yeah,
Anyone else?
he wanted me to teach him everything, that I did, which I didn't have time to do really. And he wanted me to be deferential to him, and you know, uh, I just, I respected him in the workplace, but he he laid me off. Wanted to do my job, even though he was the boss.
It was the year 2020 where I was told, I know this is shocking to you all, but I've often received the feedback that I'm a little spicy and maybe quite assertive at times. And probably a younger Jana was even more so. And I was told that if I really wanted to advance with men, I might have to show my feminine side a little more. And I had pretty good legs. I was told that by my
Oh,
female
wow.
supervisor.
Wow.
I don't know if anyone else wants to speak. This is Ilsa, and I apologize I cannot turn my camera on because I'm joining this from my phone. Dr. Schwartz, my mouth just hit the floor. That's incredible.
Yeah.
And not at all surprising. And so at my own story, you know, I've worked in STEM my whole career, and in the 90s, entering the workplace with men, I learned to talk about sports that didn't interest me one bit because you had to take part in that water cooler conversation. And like you, I was told explicitly and not so explicitly that women are expected to act a certain way in the workplace, and what is perceived as assertive for a man is perceived as hysterical for a woman. And so there's this double standard that, although it's gotten way better in today's workplace, I'm sure I'm not the only one. We still feel these microaggressions that may or may not be intentional, but they're still there. I mean, I was on a panel recently and my colleague was introduced as Dr. Smith and I was introduced by my first name. You know, it's small things like that that still, there's a lot of work to be done, you know, and I feel optimistic that as we all find our voice like this, that we can really make a difference.
I, I've never really thought about it this way, but when I was in college, I went to school for film, and film is a very male-dominated career. And I could tell that I was feeling almost like I had to be one of them, right? I had to act like one, to the point where it's like some people would think I'm lesbian because I had this kind of male no, not machismo, but like you have to put it on, right, when you're around them in order to fit in and just act like them. So I actually dropped out of that film program and went to a different film program that didn't have anything to do with production because I didn't feel like I necessarily belonged. I mean, I was doing well, I was one of like 10 girls in the film program, and I was meeting different directors and things like that, but I still didn't feel comfortable, and I still knew that, let's say I got work in that field, I would have to be someone that I wasn't, right? I'd have to be a bitch or whatever it is, right? Just to fit in, and I didn't feel comfortable with that. But I too, Jenna, when I used to work at a law library, one of the law librarians told me my shorts were too short, which I don't think they were. That's not how I dress, but I know you have nice legs, but you can't wear shorts. I'm like, excuse me? It's like, where did that come from? And people tend to excuse it as, oh, that's just how that person is. And I don't ever accept that. I don't believe that people are just that way and we have to accept them for who they are. I think people need to know, I think women especially need to speak up more in like right away. We hear a lot of stories now where women are, 10, 20 years later now feeling like they could actually come and say something about what happened to them. But, we need to, I don't know, I'll be raunchy, get the balls and just say it now, So.
I'm going to share computers. That was the first field that I went into. And my boss that hired me was actually pretty wonderful, except that one of the things that he did is having me work in a male-dominated field. And I mean, I was the only woman in the entire, the company was Burroughs Corporation, who fixed computers in the entire company nationwide. I was like a brand new shiny toy or like the next, Tesla or whatever. And so he called everybody that he knew and he would say, I have a woman working for me and blah, blah, blah. But it was like I wasn't a human being. It was like this trophy to show off to everybody. And so that was kind of a really awkward feeling to have. And then also being treated that way in the office until thankfully my colleagues were not that way. I worked with veterans who were in their 40s and 50s, and then we worked for the Bureau of Indian Affairs, who our customer were the Native Americans, and they were very respectful. And I think that because they gave me my place, that it made it a lot easier to get my place in that workplace. And so, but I've never felt like an object before. This, I guess that trophy, and and that was a little strange. Um, and after that, but I had more trouble when I was going to school to get that degree, because there were a lot of people that kept telling me, hey, they have a office education that you could go into, and other things that they were trying to send me to because I belonged there or I would fit in better than where I was. And so that did happen.
I think in us talking about the aggression that we may have had when we were working with men, there is a question that I'm interested in asking all of you, because in my opinion, I think that women, that we provide aggression for each other, to each other, more so sometimes than men. I have had at least 4 or 5 jobs where I've had to leave those jobs or I was let go because I had a female supervisor who I did not get along with. And a career that I've tried out. I read a book once by a woman. She wrote, it was called In the Company of Women. And it talks about how we are so much more harsh with each other sometimes than our male counterparts. And so I'm curious, by show of hands, just how many people have had aggressions, either micro or macro, from other women, someplace they've worked. I'm just curious. Yeah. See, we all have. And to me, that's a conversation that we need to have, is how can we support each other rather than bring each other down? Because we're here to help each other and support each other.
I think as someone who's taught psychology and gender, and worked because I worked for several family businesses, I worked in consumer products and pharmaceuticals before I came to higher ed. And the different cultures also have different comfort zones for how people communicate with each other. And the tendency for male styled conversation tends to be more direct and offensive, and women can be indirect and offensive. But what is really interesting to me is coming out of corporate America, that higher ed has a very feminine personality with communication. And so a lot of it is gossip, backstabbing, indirect communication. But I think the male-female thing and how we become unkind to each other is pretty well established. And to me, it comes from a place of being givers and takers, or being kind, and the good kind of vulnerability with Brene Brown, versus the when I feel inferior or hurt, I take that out on other people or do unkind things to other people to undermine them. So this, to me, that we're having this conversation here is really neat, because students in my psychology classes have these conversations, but in our organization, we have not. So thank you. Love your question, Tina.
I can go, Tina. I think that's such a powerful question. I've heard it said that the entire cosmetics industry exists because women judge women, not because men care. I don't know, but what I have found in my have a tendency,
We're losing you, Elsie.
sorry, can you hear me now?
Hmm. Yes.
Is it better? Okay, sorry about that. I hit a dead spot. No, I've heard it said that we all try to make sense of our world by categorizing and by saying, you know, men tend to be this and women tend to be that. And that's very helpful, but it can also be harmful because I think we need to deal with the individual woman or man in a certain circumstance. And I've found in my own experience that women in supervisory capacities are there for a reason. And they've learned to adapt their behavior to get where they are and to be as successful as they are. And sometimes that translates into behaviors with their subordinates that is not always supportive. And so for me, I found that it's helpful, you know, I consciously look at my own behavior and how do I lift up women around me, including my students, you know, and how do I balance that with not being a doormat and letting people run all over me. So I think those human relationships are tremendously important in female dynamics as well as male female.
And I'm glad you brought that up because that was one of the things that started this whole Awesome Women conversation. We were featuring women from the outside, and I could think, you know, at top of my head, I came up with a few women who I thought were really awesome and that we should showcase. And when I offered this opportunity to them, they came up with other women to showcase and said, this person is also an awesome woman. And it just kept going and going and going and to where we have a showcase of about 50 women that should be on the website pretty soon. And when you see that, you're going to see that this is a result of PVCC women uplifting other PVCC women. Now, all of them that were asked or that were nominated did not participate. You know, some said, you know, it's not my thing to do that, but you know, thank you. But I just, to me, that was overwhelming. The fact of, to me, it's love and support of that, lifting her up, lifting up this woman at PVCC and highlighting her. And those of you that participated, I thank you. I'm so I'm so proud of the women that also nominated other women, and that we're here in this space today that we can share, that we can have this conversation. So we also, I believe, have some students here. So as great, awesome PVCC women that we are, what kind of tips, um, inspiration, or story would you like our women or female students or coworkers, colleagues to learn a positive message that we can share with them? And anyone can go. We'll do it popcorn style again.
Say find allies and friends to be supportive with, because we're all braver together. And when women see other women behaving well and lifting each other up, those positive behaviors are all really contagious. To find each other. You know, I see people on this call that I feel that with. So find each other.
I would like to say that this past year, especially, or actually, I guess maybe kind of like the past 4 years, I've learned a lesson that women, that our entire place is elevated when the entire society elevates them. And politically, I mean, the Me Too movement stopped a lot of men behaviors, you know, and I draw a lot of inspiration from Stacey Abrams and how she moved, you know, heaven and earth. And I think that, you know, that's not the personal, but it is a way of lifting the entire country up in just kind of like flexing your muscle and showing that you know where power is and how to exercise it.
It's wonderful.
I think one tip would be to get on board. And what I mean by that is realize that everything you do isn't just about yourself. it's about everyone else, whether it's, you know, at your job, you're in a relationship, whatever it is, you're working as a team in everything that you do, I think. So whether you're a supervisor, I'm a supervisor, but I try to show my staff by doing their job, you know, like I can do your job too. I'm not above this, you know, and if I help you get this done and we work together, look how much better it can be. So I think that you, again, just go into it with that team mentality. If you've ever been on, you know, a soccer team or anything like that, you know what that feels like, and that camaraderie. It feels good, right? To help each other achieve something. So I think just think of it that way.
I think too, you have to learn how to lift yourself up and pour and make sure that you're taking care of yourself. I think that's something I've been really working on, and it's allowed me, I think, to really help other people, because I've learned by having those boundaries for myself and learning to really take time for me, I'm able to tell other people that I work with, like, hey, I can see that you're really stressed. Like, are you taking good care of yourself? And I think it allows us to work better together and better support each other. So I think, yeah, you also have to learn how to support yourself and make sure that you have those boundaries and can continue to give to other people.
I agree with
what, sorry.
I'm sorry, Christine, go ahead.
You go ahead. You were there.
I was just going to say that what Loretta just typed, you know, I think that's I think that's the reason that women, I think that's kind of a natural for women, is to be that sort of servant leader, which is really what one hopes from our political leaders also. And what Gretchen said, it's like being part of a team and showing that as a supervisor, when I was a supervisor, I would nurture those that I supervised, and I would yell at those who were above me because I needed them to give my people work and keep them working, because if they didn't have jobs to work on, then they'd go home. And
I was just going to say, and kind of piggybacking off of Alexis, and yes, definitely self-care, but also being courageous, finding your allies and your mentors and using your voice. And then when you find a mentor, because oftentimes I know when I started last year, just kidding, at a Fortune 500 company, I started right out of high school. And so I was very quiet and I didn't speak up, but I did start to find mentors and people that I admired, if you will, and asked them how did they get where they were, and I asked questions and gain my experience that way, and then I would look for the next opportunity, the next opportunity, next opportunity. So constantly finding ways to improve yourself, whether it be on self-learning, taking webinars, going back to school. You're in school now, speaking to students specifically, or myself too, but constant learning, finding that mentor, using your voice, and being courageous to take that step. It's scary sometimes, but if you stay in that same place, doing the same thing forever and ever and ever, you're never going to grow. Sometimes it's scary to leave what you're comfortable in, but once you step out of that, it's where you grow and catapult yourself to the next level.
Christine, I love that you said the word opportunities, because I think that there's a lot of times when we have opportunities that are sitting in front of us and we just don't see them. I can tell you that in the past, I've been, I've always wanted to grow and learn and just do as much as I possibly can and set my goals high, but I have been passed up for a lot of different opportunities in the past. And every time that that's happened to me, I've sat back and said, okay, well, maybe that wasn't the opportunity for me, but hey, I have the opportunity to cross train and learn this and then learn this. So when another opportunity for a position or just a different type of job comes around, I'm stronger and I can, have a better chance of getting that opportunity. So it's really about just looking at the glass half full instead of half empty, and being able to just be open to some of those changes, but also just some of those hidden opportunities where you can just learn, even if it's not exactly what you wanted. Sometimes they're a blessing in disguise, and then you learn something about yourself, or you learn that maybe you just didn't want to do what you thought you wanted to do, but at least you had the opportunity to learn it and to figure it out that way, instead of moving into a position or into a job that you were going to hate but didn't know you were going to hate because you'd never tried it. So that would be one tip that I have, one idea that I have. Just take everything that you possibly can, learn from it. We always learn every single day. I'm a true, firm believer that every day you learn something new, whether it's from another human being, from a tree, or whatever it is. You always learn something new every day. So look at those as opportunities, as things that are just gonna, make you a better person and a stronger person.
So I was going to add, so I'm in a sports law and business program right now, my master's program, and equity always comes up. In this last class, equity did come up. And one of the things that I learned is, I mean, we all know that there are women coaching the Super Bowl, but what I was finding out in some of the articles that I was reading in an assignment is that the players actually respected and listened and even went to the women coaches before they would go to some of the men coaches, because they were comfortable with them. The women, in a lot of ways, were nurturing and would listen to them before they would just be like, just go do it. And that was the point that the men were making. It's like, I go to my male coach and he's gonna be like, you need to figure it out. The women were gonna sit there and be like, well, here, let me listen to you and we can work this out. And what avenues do you have? So I think with that too, you just have to be you and use those feminine traits to the best of your ability, because it will help you. Like, you're a good listener. I mean, that comes into play somehow. If you're tough, then you're tough. So I think you just have to use you, even though it's going to get downplayed or you're going to be told that's not how it should be done. One way or the other, it's going to benefit you somehow as you progress in life and in your job and, in your relationships that you have.
That you bring up, because how we communicate with each other, and one of the things we talk about in gender studies is how we all do gender, and if we have an understanding of how other people do gender and what their gender expectations are, then we can be the ones that adapt to their comfort zone of communicating. And I'll tell you one thing that I noticed. I'm working with David Bradley right now, doing arts with veterans, and David Bradley is a tall male. And for some things, the veterans are more comfortable going to that tall male. And for other things, they come to Tess and I, who are nurturing females. So, if we can put people where they are with gender expectations, then we have the ability to help and support and influence people too, based on their comfort zones, as opposed to saying that we wish the world was a specific way. And then missing out on those opportunities.
Good point.
Well, I get that too, but I'm a tall female who doesn't always smile. That I'm told I'm unapproachable. I need to smile, which I hate, so I won't smile if you ever tell me that. Just, and I'm sure every woman in this conversation has been told that at some point in their life too. I've been told through private messages and meetings here, and I just sit there like, no. So because of those things, we all have to, we all work through them. You said that, David Bradley's tall, so they go to him first. Well, I'm not approached sometimes because, I'm tall and not smiling. And it's just, it is what it is.
And I think that's one of the things, like in our meetings here, since we're talking with PV women, if we're in a meeting and we notice that a woman is being silenced, and there are different ways to silence everyone. A nice person silences a dissenting voice by saying, hey, come on, let's all get along here. That's one way to silence someone. Another way to silence someone is, hey, you know what, you're off in the weeds, we need to stay on task. There are 1,000 ways to silence people in meetings. So if we see women being silenced for one of those expectations that somebody else has of us, that's when we can speak up for each other and allow us to have voices. But if we don't stand up for each other in meetings when we see these little things happen, then we're missing those opportunities to support each other based on how other people perceive us. And I'm one of the troublemakers who gets perceived as a troublemaker. So I've appreciated people in this room who have stood up for me in situations like that on campus.
Yeah, I was
Stephanie,
even
as
in
a
a meeting. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, as a perspective, one of the best things that I've ever been told by my mentor was when you have somebody judging you, you politely tell them internally or externally, your opinion of me is none of my business. If you're not told that, if you are told that you are not smiling enough, I've been told, don't be so bubbly, tone down your energy, don't smile so much. People won't take you seriously. It's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. Just be yourself.
Tina?
I was going to say about a year or so, I was even in a meeting with a bunch of people, and there was a woman presenter who was providing information that was really, really impactful. And one of the males in the room said, made a comment about the fact that she must drive her husband crazy or nuts because of how excited she is about her line of work. And it was said in front of a room, and I was horrified to hear it. And I did feel bad about the woman that had to experience this. And I just wonder, would that have happened if there was a male up there? Would that have been said to him? You know, and it just was really, it really took me back. And I didn't do more at the time. I made a note of it. But you know, Karen, I hear what you're saying. Because sometimes it happens, it's like, am I really hearing this? But it was said in front of a huge room of people that were mixed gender, and nobody did anything about it. And it really hurt that person. And I talked to her later and apologized because as a woman, it was very offensive to hear another male coworker say that. So, yeah.
It's very hard for
So
a
I didn't
woman.
mean to make everything so heavy.
It's not heavy. It's the silence. It's like, do you wait until somebody gets up the nerve or do you talk?
Yeah, I mean, because it happened right in front of a bunch of us, and it's like, and I appreciate what Dr. Sada is saying, but you know, sometimes it's like, what do you do about it? Do you run and tell EEOC? I mean, what, you know, when you see these, because it was definitely a microaggression that was seen by a lot of people, and it was really disappointing.
Norma and Kathy's culture training, cultural agility training has some really good tips for easy things to say because it doesn't have to be a fight when people go to those places, because a lot of people who say things like that don't realize, and if we can call attention to it, you know, hey, I mean, if you say, hey, would you say that if, you know, Dr. Dale was standing up there? I mean, there's so many little things that maybe we could say in a nice way, because we don't have to shame people who just say things that we wish they wouldn't say. But if we could call attention to it, or at least make each other safe in meetings, so that those of us who are super amiable or analytic or drivers or expressives can all be heard in meetings.
Yeah, someone like Jenna could say, I represent that remark because she has that high energy also. Someone
She'd
like
say it
me.
with a nice warm, she'd say it with a nice smile, and they go, oh, she's so nice when she says it.
I represent. I wish I had that energy. I wish I had that fortitude that this woman has, because it's awesome. So one of the things that I got the privilege of doing was reading a lot of the biographies that you wrote. And I noticed there was a theme going through the biographies. And this theme was that a lot of the women, and some of you didn't write about it, tended to talk about having side gigs or other jobs, or you're authors, or you have a little business going on or something. Do we want to talk about that? Um, how we're where do you find the energy to do all this? And do you want to talk about what it is that you're doing? Anyone want to share on that?
I'll tell you one way, I'm talking a lot here. One way that because I'm into the innovation and entrepreneurship activity, there are two ways that organizations can create entrepreneurs. One is to create a social environment where entrepreneurs can flourish. Another is to create an environment where they can't, so they go elsewhere and do their own gig. So all organizations have the potential to create entrepreneurs.
All right.
So,
So let's talk about that entrepreneurial spirit that we have here.
So this is Loretta. I'll talk a little bit about mine. And I'm sorry, WebEx totally takes my computer down. So I'm not on video because otherwise it'll just crash. But
Yeah.
so my kind of side gig, I guess you could say, it's not real. I volunteer pro bono for an organization called Mission Teaching Foundation. And what they do, it's out of Chiapas, Mexico. So very South Mexico. And they basically help and assist the indigenous Mayan with getting skills, education, basically, in the villages in the area. It is villages. Some of them don't even have roads to them. I've hiked up to villages where there's no road access. They go to about 6th grade, but it's kind of 6th grade-ish, you could call it, education-wise. So the students are brought down, and they actually are residents in the town. There's a boys and a girls in housing, and they teach them middle school, high school, and then if they are able to get scholarships for them, there's a lot of donations and scholarships, and they kind of get scholarships and go to the larger city to go to university. And so I kind of got hooked up with this through, well, Donna Rebido, if you remember her. She used to work at PV, but through a priest friend of hers, we kind of got connected with this group, and I just ended up continuing to do the work. And Norma, when you say, I don't know how you're doing more work, my friend who was the priest who ran the organization would always say, Loretta, I'm going to give this to you because you're a busy person and you're always going to find a way to get this work done. So I do. I help with their website. I help with all their tech stuff. I on their board. But it's really fulfilling to know, like, I'm helping these people on the southern part of the world, right? Get education, and it's at my core. So that was my little story. So I just wanted to add that. Busy people get things done. So we always find a way, right?
Yes. Thank you.
Sorry, Norma, so are we're sharing what we do as our side gigs? Is that what we're doing?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Can Tina tell us about her 80s thing?
Sure.
Oh, hold on. Christine was talking.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And then we'll go to Tina.
That's okay.
Okay.
No worries. So I actually, Loretta, that was amazing. I would like to hear about some more of your stories and see some photos. That's just super amazing. I loved it. But I actually, and it's funny that you say busy people get lots of things done, because sometimes I'm like, I'm too busy, especially after I get off of work, and I've already been busy all day. So I have, so I'm a beauty consultant with Mary Kay. I've been a beauty consultant now for over, I'm trying to think of how long it's been. I go back to as old as my son. He's 24, so 24 years. And I originally, because I didn't know how to put makeup on is why I started, was my original reason. But so I learned more so in there. It's not just about makeup and cosmetics, and it's good skincare, but it's also women empowering women. I've learned tons of, I would never be speaking. Let me just start off by saying that. Back in my before I started, prior to, never would I have pushed my microphone to be speaking to all of you. It never would have happened in a million years. So that is the biggest part that I have kind of gained from that. But again, women empowering women, leadership skills, confidence, my levels are just, you would not know me as me back then when I first started. So I learned that. I also am a jewelry consultant, so I've just loved everything jewelry. So that's another thing I have. And then I've just started one that is true to my heart, is because it's my kids call me crafty. They call me Crafty Chris, but so I've started making my own things at home, and that I have done over this past year. So I'm showcasing some of the stuff that I've made. So, but my kids are all grown now, and so now it's quiet in my house, and I have to find something to occupy the quiet time. I'm not used to having non-chaos going on in my house and quiet. It drives me crazy, even though I should be, just reveling in all that. I'm not. It's too quiet. So now, Tina, we had a request for your 80s theme.
Oh. Okay, well, I was a teenager in the 80s. I was born in 1970. So if any of you math majors on the call will know that I'll be 51 at the end of this month. I've always been in a position to be a spokesperson. I've always, ever since I was little, in my neighborhood, I would hold little talent shows and I'd be the host and the MC. Which really kind of got my, career after college. I drove the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile, and it just really launched my career in PR. And so I've always had such a kinship with other people in my generation. I think that's kind of how we are. I loved Duran Duran. I loved shoulder pads. I loved Holly Hobby and all that stuff. And I just felt like, we were in the pandemic or, doing quarantine last year. And I really felt like the Gen X voices are missing, because you've got the baby boomers, who I know a lot of you are on the call, and you're the largest generation. And then the baby boomers had the millennials, who are also a large generation, but you have the Gen Xers who are kind of sandwiched in between that. And I just feel like we are the smallest generation on record, and we don't really have a voice. It seems like we've kind of been the forgotten generation. And so I decided to start a podcast last year with just basic, not basic, but just scenarios or life experiences that I was having, that I knew that other Gen X women across the country were probably having. It was just a way for me to be a voice for Gen X women. And it's interesting because boomers and millennials have very similar qualities and characteristics, because they're their parents and children. Gen Xers, we birthed the Gen Z, who are now, as you know, our main students. And it's interesting because Gen Z has a lot of the qualities of us Gen X parents: independence, wanting to be seen for who they are. And so it's really interesting. I have 2 Gen Z under my roof, and the podcast really took off. I think, I've only done 1 season. I'll be honest, it's on hiatus right now because I have some other things going on. But I think I've had over 1,500 downloads. I've had, from different countries. I've had women call me or email me and say that, they felt like they've been ignored for so long because there's so much hype around Gen Z now.
Paradise Valley Testing Center, how can I help you?
I'd like to order a test, please. By the way, I also did stand-up comedy a few years ago. So, that always helps too. I'll have 3 tests as long as if I can get, 3 for the cost of 1. Thank you. Anyway, so yes, Karen, thank you for asking. I just think Gen Xers, we're just kind of forgotten about, but I will tell you, it was very gratifying because my son was my editor and my social media person. So he's a Gen Z. But I will tell you that if any of you, you're the 80s out there, you can binge watch Cobra Kai on Netflix if you were ever a Karate Kid fan. I have such a crush on William Zabka. Oh my gosh. He's so cute. Anyway, that's not what we're talking about. Unless you want to talk about 80 crushes, I'll be happy, Norma, to do an offshoot of this, and I can facilitate a meeting about 80s crushes. Anyway.
Sounds wonderful.
Yeah. And I'm waiting for that test. Thank you very much.
Tina, Ralph Macchio. He was mine.
Yes. And he and William Zabka are like 58 or 59, and they look I mean, they look like they're in their like mid 30s. I mean, they're both, they still look very young. But William Zabka, whoo, he's cute. He's very cute. He can come work for me in marketing anytime.
Gina, you got to put your link for your podcast in there so people can link to it.
Oh, I will. Thank you, Loretta.
Yes, my mouse has gone kaput. I can type into the chat, but I can't hit return. So I have wanted to say shout outs to a lot of you, and it hasn't gone. So I apologize for that. Any other person want to share about their side gigs? Do we have any of the authors on the call? Anyone who's written a book? Because we have quite a few authors. That was amazing too. And like I said, a lot of business people, not business, a lot of side gigs. And I didn't even know about yours, Tina. That one caught me by surprise. As a matter of fact, one of the women that was recognized is Tina Preston Ortiz, and one of the reasons that she was one of the first people that came to mind for me is because of her work with the Fresh Start Women's Center. And the philosophy behind that is, women are the ones that are supporting their families. And after the recession, they were the ones that were struggling to find jobs and had families to support, especially the single women. And having that business startup certificate really helped a lot of women get their families out of poverty. And around the same time, it was that lift her up, you put your hand and help another woman up. And that was exactly what was being exemplified. And it's also what happens through the Fresh Start Women's Center in helping women who are transitioning through their life, no matter whether it's from homelessness or recuperating from a divorce or something else that's happening in their lives that happened to women, helping them get back on their feet. And so that's a very awesome organization that's out there. And so if someone doesn't have anything else to share about their side gigs, I would like to transition. We had some women here from STEM, and I know that there is a big push to do STEM for our students. And I still get questions from our students about how do you make it in a STEM world? Okay, and so that's going to be the question for our STEM um, panelists that are here, or women that are here. How did you make it into the STEM world? So, and we're doing it popcorn style, so you can either raise your hand or just start talking.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Casey.
Casey Durande. Those of you that don't know me, I am a physicist. I live, eat, breathe, drink, whatever you want to call it, physics. So I didn't know if I could, put in there my side gig, because I go back to Fermilab every summer to do my physics research. But anyway, in terms of how to make it in a STEM field, follow your passion. Because you probably can imagine being a physicist, that is definitely a male-dominated field. And so I have my share of tales to tell, but I've also had many men that helped support me along the way. Follow your passion. The mentors that was discussed as well. I guess for me is just be you as well. People have told me you're kind of weird, and I just teach the way I am. And I don't know if I'm really answering the question, but it's really just follow your passion. That's the thing. And then I think it was it you, Jeanette, that put something in there about, if you love the job, it's really not a job. It's your passion. It's your life. So I don't know if that helped. Oh, yes. And a race car driver. I do have a lead foot. Okay, maybe that's my other side gig. How's that?
I don't know. We lost Tatiana was on here a while ago. Is she still here? And Elsie?
I'm here, but I'm walking up the stairs, so I'm out of breath.
Oh, okay.
I was listening to Casey, so I stopped. I, I second what Casey said. You know, if you find your passion, a lot of the stuff, a lot of the obstacles that you encounter in STEM sort of roll off your shoulders, I guess. You know, you take the 10,000-foot view and you keep it in bigger perspective. And if the field you're in, is the field that you love, then by definition, you become more resilient to the obstacles that are in your way. I think that's not just true for STEM, though. I think that's really for any field that women and men work in. You just find your footing and you do what you like to do in the way that you like to do it. And there's that.
I like what you said about that resilience. Sometimes you do have to, you know, hold your hold your head up and just keep trudging forward if that's what you want to do. I know in computers, that's one of the things I had to do when I was going to school is sometimes I was isolated. The men would get together in groups to do their projects and I'd have to do them by myself, which taught me how to read the book and learn on my own skills that have served me well ever since. I don't know if I would have developed those skills had I been in those little cliques. And but I know that later on when I was doing really well in school, that then they were coming to seek my help or my guidance because I had read the book. But um, that resilient had it not been for that resilience, to me it was sink or swim. I needed to survive. That's my mantra, my song. I will survive. But that was what kept me going. And I don't know how many of you guys really think about what that song means. But I know that when I work with the women at the Fresh Start Women's Center, that I think about that the first day we go in, that this is for their survival. This is something that they really want to accomplish, and so it's important to me.
You know, Norma, I think too that, um, Tina said stuff about female bosses, and I think it was Karen who said that the higher education is sort of a feminine work environment. Well, libraries are too, and I found that with the librarians who were mostly women, um, I didn't have any trouble working with them, and I think that it was because of that resilience, and that following their passion, that relying on their brains a lot was something that made that equalizer for everyone.
I like that. Relying on your brain. It's powerful.
I'd have to
Right.
agree with you. Oh, I'm sorry, Norma.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I agree with you, Jeanette. I've worked in libraries for about 13 years now, and um, those have been some of my best coworkers. And I guess I never thought of it as the resilience, right? Because I've worked in a lot of school libraries or private libraries, and it's kind of business type stuff. So that can be very male dominated as well. So maybe there was a lot of that sense of camaraderie in there. And libraries are always having to fight for why they should be in existence still. So I
Right.
think there's that fighting thing in women that
Right.
I've noticed a lot in libraries too.
Yeah, by resilience, part of what I mean is that just having a real mental agility to adapt to any given circumstance.
I think, Norma, this is such a great conversation you're giving all of us and Versha an opportunity for us to talk about. And I think listening to you talk about the libraries too, and like if we had some upcoming training, maybe, because what if we conform to a situation versus we're trying to influence change, what an adaptation looks like is different. Because conforming behavior is a lot different than influencing behavior, and the ways to go about that are really different too. So I think all of us, for instance, when do we conform? Maybe sometimes conforming is the safest thing to do. But if we're going to influence change and be leaders, and what I talk with my students about is don't follow the zeitgeist, lead the zeitgeist. Change behaviors are different than conforming. So if we all learn some of those things together, I think that would make us more powerful together too.
I would like to hear a little bit more about that. Can you share a little bit more on?
Well, can I just respond? I agree with you that conforming is, you kind of have to put it in context though, because I think conforming is there are generational differences to what that means. And that instead the adaptation and responsiveness is kind of like hard-earned skills for life. And, this is not something that comes automatically to most human beings, is being in touch with that that way of survival.
Karen, did you want to did you want to follow up?
Well, I think these are huge topics because people can specialize in influence and persuasion, and how gender affects communication, how gender, for instance, if you have high power distance versus low power distance, decentralized power, centralized power, how many layers of hierarchy, or what kind of the bureaucratic social norms there are. There's so many things to learn about that. It's really a lifelong journey. But if we learn some of those things together, and we had some more tools for how to navigate different types of situations, I think that would help us be protectors and leaders, and more nimble so that we notice what kind of social context we're walking into. Because if we can we can be better at predicting where the risks and opportunities are in that context. So then instead of maybe conforming too soon, you realize that there was some open space that was missed before. And if those are the things that become visible to us in the cultures that we are part of, whether it's at home or in workplaces or volunteering, that kind of thing, I think those are how we can become better mentors to each other too, because we can help each other see that we always have choices in how we navigate different social contexts. I mean, I love that stuff. It's kind of my specialty, but I know that it could also be boring or to other people. But I thought if we learn some of those things together, it could be helpful to all of us.
I think that's what you're talking about right there is one of the reasons that, and I'm going to call Versha out. That's one of the reasons I love working with Versha Anderson, because she brings in a new perspective, and in the context of where I came in to PVCC with an MBA, with having run a business, with having worked with companies all over the U.S. and just doing things differently, I started to conform and accepted things the way they were, and versus like, what, you got sent back to your cage? What cage? Who has the key? There's no such thing as a cage there. She would have it. She just had these like, what? Why are you being stopped? Let's just move on. Let's trudge on. And it's that language. It's that um, ability to see the possibility to say, let's not conform. Let's push ahead. Let's make a difference in this community that allowed the work of TAC to happen last year, because we tend to want to go to that safe space where you don't have those conversations, those difficult conversations. And because of that inspiration, because of everything that happened last summer, is we're here today talking about women's issues with our women colleagues. If One of the things that when we were talking about this is it would be wonderful to have the same type of conversation. And if next year we're in person, where we have little breakout rooms where different there's little sessions that are being led by different women that are here today that you could talk about. You can go to Tina's I just forgot the word. I just went blank. um, Tina, what podcast?
Awesome.
Yeah, go
Podcast.
in and learn about that, or go in and learn about what running a business is like, or being entrepreneurial. I mean, there's so many topics that we can have here. That we can share with our students, and to help us grow, to help all of us grow, and to keep mentoring each other. And then, of course, there's all the organizations that are available for us to support and to advocate for, who we can also have come in and share their resources with us, so that we know and can share those resources with our students.
Can I
Norm,
just can I just say that? Oh, sorry, Tina. Go ahead. You're responding.
no, thank you. I was just going to say to Norma and to everybody. So I've also been a mentor and a workshop facilitator for Fresh Start Women's Foundation for close to 20 years. And the new CEO, Kim McWaters, she was my mentor. She hired me at Universal Technical Institute, and I worked with her for 13 years. So talk about women uplifting women. Kim is just an example of that. And if any of you are interested in volunteering with Fresh Start, they look for all kinds of opportunities. They're going to start opening their services in person, I think, in July. And they've got a wonderful thrift shop where they need people to take in donations, and they get very nice donations. Leading workshops, volunteering at events when they start doing that. So I'll put the website in the chat. But if you really want to get involved with helping women and you're not quite sure where to start, Fresh Start is a place to start.
I just wanted to say I noticed the headline come across on my phone that the 1.9 got passed by the House. And the more that I've read about that stuff, I think that, if this thing takes hold, we're going to go from a decades-long period of stress and, worry about how to survive, and there's going to be a new day where there's going to be social support, and women are going to be huge beneficiaries of this. And I think I think that one of the reasons that there are the conflicts and psychically shutting down and just protecting what you've got has to do with operating in a culture of austerity and the just scraping to get by and to take care of your family and so forth. So, you talk about women are the ones who raise their children. Well, those women are going to have an easier day now, and that has to do with people, women especially, flexing that political power.
I'm glad to hear you say that, because I just read that women have left the workforce in record numbers during this pandemic. And so that was kind of troubling too, because you know that when women leave the workforce, it makes it that much harder for them to get back in. And so hopefully that transition won't be so difficult.
I think about a couple of years ago when they were doing these exposés on how bad the facilities were in elementary schools, and they show wallboard that was rotting away and air conditioning vents that were flopping around, and that is like shameful in this city, in this country. So, and in this county, in this city, in this country. So I think that feeling of, I can't think of another word right now, but it's degradation, the degrading of our way of life has kind of like backed people who are not exceedingly rich into corners to really not be able to follow their passion and do what they love, which is what puts you in this better frame of mind and more open to your society.
So I'm going to ask Christy. I don't know if you're able to talk, but Christy Kalunga is on here, and she is with our early college program, and she has written a lot of grants to get funding for the program. She's done some wonderful things for our students and for to get women to work in the community. And I know that a lot of the women that go through that program also go on and get their bachelor's degrees. Christy, are you able to talk about that at all? I just want to give her that opportunity. So we have 15 minutes, well, actually 12 minutes. I'm sorry, I can't do the math right now. But about 15 minutes left, and just wanted to, there's a lot of people that are on phones or are off camera. And is there anyone who hasn't had a chance to say something that would like to say something, or is there a topic that you would like for us to cover that we have not covered that you would like to put in the chat box? Please do so now so that you can go and you can leave and you can say, you know what, I had a burning question, but I never asked it or it didn't get answered. Would really like to take that opportunity to take care of that. Oh, Christy, are you off mute? Oh no, okay, sorry. No questions? We've covered everything? How about if we have any gentlemen on the call? Is there anything that they would like to share or add?
Just that I enjoyed sitting and listening to all these stories. I didn't feel like it was a place to say anything other than just learn. I'm actually just the reaction that I had most is I wish there were more men on the call. I counted a grand total of 5 over the course of the meeting, but at the same time, I'm glad that there was space. So just thank you all for sharing and just allowing me to be in this space with you. I learned a lot.
And I want to tell you, I appreciate you and the other men being here because when we have men in the room, one of the things we know is men are fathers, men are husbands, men are sons. And so having appreciation of women is really important in order to support women. And so I appreciate all the men that have been here. So thank you.
Norma,
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure that everyone saw in the chat, just as a reminder, there are 2 upcoming microaggression training sessions that will be held on April 13th and April 20th. The sessions go together. So what we'll do in that first session on April 13th will be advanced on April 20th. And these sessions are going to be facilitated by Brian Quarles, And yeah, so you should already have the information on your calendar. If you go ahead to those dates, you should see them there. So it's Tuesday, April 13th and Tuesday, April 20th, 12:30 to 2 p.m. If for any reason you do not see those on your calendar, let me know, and we can make sure that gets added. The other thing was just the reminder for the women's listening session on Tuesday, March 23rd. So that is a closed session to PVCC employees only who identify as women. So again, those of you on this call, many of you have already been added to that. It's a private list for that event. But if I missed anyone, please let us know and we will make sure that you get added as well.
Hey, Versha, that reminds me for everybody on the call, I know Lori Espinoza and Dr. Dale will be sending out information, but the 4 Phoenix colleges in partnership with the city of Phoenix are going to be hosting, speaking of women in leadership, that's my lead in, Mayor Kate Gallego is going to be hosting a session, or we're hosting a session with her on Thursday, March 25th, from 12 to 1:15. You do have to register, so there will be a link that will go out. It'll be in the Maricopa, and you'll see it some places. But that is basically closed to only Maricopa students, faculty, and staff. And Mayor Gallego will be talking about what it's like to be a woman in leadership, what it's like to have led through the pandemic. And I believe she is one of the youngest mayors on record across the country. So again, Thursday, the 25th, look for the link. We'll be sending it out. And I think it'd be a great way to show Mayor Gallego that we all support her as a female in leadership. Thank you.
Any other announcements about wonderful things that are happening during this month of this Women's Month? And no burning questions. I do want to tell you that there are people on this call that, well, we have a lot of awesome people on this call. And I wish you felt a little bit more comfortable sharing. But I do appreciate that you've come. There isn't any reason, if there isn't anything else to go on, I can give you back a couple of minutes back in your day. And I want to thank you for coming, and appreciate all of those that interacted through the chat and verbally. This has been hopefully a very empowering moment, and looking forward to seeing you guys all on the website. And if you didn't do it this year, hopefully there'll be something that we'll be repeating every year. So,
Norma, I just have a quick side note, or it's not really a question,
sure.
but I just wondered, you mentioned the large number of women, unfortunately, that have left the workplace either by choice or by being forced over the last year with the pandemic and whatnot. But I'm thinking in my mind that we have an opportunity, or we could have an opportunity, to do something like this more widely, and to reach out to those in our community that may want to, or that may be looking for a career change, that may be looking for additional skills, that may be looking just for empowerment, or might be looking for somehow to connect to other women and talk to other women. I know that people in my circle that I know anyway, that are maybe single moms or don't have family in the city, they've been isolated. And so a ton of fantastic women, as you mentioned on this call here, and I'm sure there are others that may not have been able to attend, but I'm just thinking in my mind that there's something bigger that we might be able to reach out to in our community, or students in our community as a whole. It's an idea.
That sounds wonderful. That's a wonderful idea. And we'll look into it. Definitely, because that's something that we can partner not just with our career center here, but also the career centers across Maricopa. Might be a really great opportunity to do that, and maybe this is a wonderful time for them to also brush up on skills so that they're ready when they re-enter the workplace. So great. Okay, everyone, have a great afternoon. Thank you for coming, and hope to see you at the microaggression training, and then also to the women training that is going to be hosted by Dr. Schwartz. Both of them which were in the chat. Thank you. Bye.